You don't get that reference, though, right? Because you don't like Lord of the Rings.
No, I get the reference.
Okay.
But did you expect me to laugh more? Or
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool reference. Just whatever.
Welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a nerd culture podcast that discusses nerddom through various segments. My name is Tyler Hunt, and I am here with my co-host, as always, Pat Kuhn. How's it going, Pat?
I'm well. How about you?
Doing great. I just flew in, and boy, are my arms tired.
God damn it. Well, I mean, why?
I just had to start us off on a good note, dude.
A good dad joke to crack off the episode. No, so I had, speaking of jokes, I wrote about this on our blog, thenerdspodcast.com. I go into a little bit more detail so you could check it out, but I kind of wanted to start off the episode with a kind of a weird story. So I've been doing stand-up off and on for about 3-4 years, about the same amount of time that we've been doing the podcast. Obviously, I'm a lot more dedicated to the podcast than I am stand-up, but yeah, I've been doing it long enough that I've seen a lot of weird things. But last episode, I talked about how we were recording and I was literally going straight to a stand-up show and I was going to do it later that night. So I had the weirdest fucking thing happen at this show. So I've been kind of heckled before. I've bombed before. Like I've had the whole 9 yards.
For sure.
So this was a book show. It wasn't an open mic or anything like that. So I wasn't getting paid in this particular show. I was just doing a guest spot. I've gotten paid before, but this wasn't one of those shows. So I was going on fairly early. There's a host, a couple of guest spots in this particular show that was just me as the guest spot, and then there's a feature, and then there's a headliner. So the host usually goes up and kind of give his 10-minute warning. Hey, turn off your phones.
Yeah.
Keep the table talk to him and blah, blah, blah. So he goes up there. He gives his 10-minute warning and he gets off the stage. He starts walking back to kind of, I guess, what we call a green room. It wasn't like a separate room or anything like that, but we're all kind of sitting there. The host gets back to where we're at. And this just random guy in the audience just gets up, walks on stage, and just starts doing stand-up.
Holy fuck.
Nobody knew who he was. He wasn't part of the show. I even turned to Chris, the host. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, so is there another guest spot? Like, I thought I was the only one. I don't care. Whatever. You're the host. You're the one that booked the show. He's like, no, I have no idea who the fucking guy is. It turns out, I guess he had been to the show the last month.
Yeah.
And he saw that they had done the 10-minute warning. And so I guess he thought in his stupid fucking brain that would have been a perfect time for him to just jump up there and just try stand up for the first time. Needless to say, he was really bad.
Yeah.
And it was, oh my God, it just put such a weird, like, vibe on the show. Like, it was really weird after that. I mean, the show went all right. I'm not going to blame the entirety of the show being just kind of middle of the road on this one guy. It was just really weird. At first, I was like impressed with like his giant balls just to go up there, especially at me being his first time. But then I was like, what an asshole.
Yeah. Did you guys acknowledge that?
Oh, yeah. So we tried to be graceful because I was like, Chris, you got to do something. Like, if it was me, I would have just gone up there and taken the microphone from him and just like set the fuck down if I was a host. But that's kind of not my place at that moment in time because I wasn't hosting. So I was like, Chris, you gotta do something. And he's like, well, what should I do? I was like, well, let's try to do something kind of discreet at first. So I was like, let him go on for like 30 seconds and then just give him the light.
Yeah.
See if that he kind of catches on. Like, you need to get the fuck out of here. He kind of ignored that. I was like, okay, let him go for a little bit longer. And then you just got to go up there, man. You just got to take it. And so, yeah, that put a weird Like just a weird vibe on the show.
Did he stay for the rest of the show?
Yeah, and we kind of heckled him a little bit. Like the headliner really got into like basically just called him out. I was like, don't ever fucking do that again.
God.
Which was awesome. I love Big John. He's hilarious, the guy that was headlining. But yeah, it was just really weird. I never had seen that before. Never even occurred to me, like when I was first starting out. Like, that's not something you do. Like it never even crossed my mind that someone would do that. It's just, it was so weird. And what people don't understand, and I think that's the thing that got me most irritated out of the whole situation, is what people don't understand is there's a lot of thought that goes into like how you build a show. And if you have a bad performance, that kind of puts like I said, a weird vibe on the whole show.
For
like
sure.
if the first couple of comics come up and they just bomb for whatever reason, it usually doesn't bode well for the rest of the show. Cause once you get people laughing, it's kind of contagious. So they'll kind of go down that road with you. A road that they might not have gone down if you're making them laugh the whole time. So you can go to a lot of weird places if you're actually being funny. But when the first comedian in quotes comes up and the audience doesn't know that he's not part of the show. So he just goes up and he's bad, and he was real fucking bad. They don't know that that's not part of the show. So they just think, okay, he's really bad. He's on this show. Then everybody else is bad.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of puts us in a weird position. I feel like I did all right. And I'd like to think that I kind of started digging us a little out of that hole, but it's just really selfish and really shitty that he ever put us in that situation. And nobody's ever, if he ever continued with it, no one's ever going to put him on a show. Like anybody that was I will never put him on a show if I'm running a show. Because fuck you. Like if you're willing to do that, then you're not somebody that I would want to ever work with.
Yeah.
Was
he sober?
Yeah. I mean, this was something that he planned out. He went to this show thinking, this is my chance. This is what I'm going to do. I mean, good on him to have just gigantic, like Randy Marsh sized balls. I don't know. I wouldn't have never, it would have never occurred to me to do that.
Yeah, man, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. All right. So if this is your first episode, thanks for checking us out. You can check out all of our back episodes on our website, The Nerds Podcast. You can also check us out on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically all that good stuff. You can also email us, thenerdsyourlookingfor@gmail.com. We are really hoping to get some really good questions where we're planning on doing a listener question segment that we did a few months back. We had a lot of fun with it. We got a lot of really good questions. And we'd like to do another one of those segments. So definitely be thinking of those questions and emailing us at thenerdsyourlookingfor@gmail.com. So if this is your first episode, we'd like to kind of just start off the episode by just kind of checking in with each other. We call it What We're Into. So what are you into this week?
I went and saw Baby Driver.
All right, cool.
Which I wasn't aware came out midweek. Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, a buddy from work texted me and was talking about Baby Driver and how excited he was to go see it that night. And I'm like, what the fuck? How are you seeing Baby Driver? And
I guess because it's the week before a holiday weekend, they always do weird stuff about that.
Yeah, so it completely caught me off guard, but I was excited to see it, so I pushed up seeing it and was really pumped to do so. That being said, I do have a piece of advice. If you are in a city that you are not familiar with, you should look at reviews of the theater you're going to before you go. So I've been in Akron the last 2 weeks, and I went to an Akron theater. It was a Regal Cinema. So I'm like, oh, I've been to the Regal in Indianapolis before.
And it's really nice.
Mall, stadium seating, recliners, all that good stuff. I'm sure they got their shit together. They did not have their shit together.
Oh, yeah?
It was in a bad part of town, which, I mean, I'm fine. I got over it. But it looks like it has not been touched since it was built in probably the 80s. There's not stadium seating. It's like flat seating.
That's weird.
And I felt like I was a football field away from the screen. It was not the best viewing experience. So that was a bummer. But the movie itself is really good. And
yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, so I'll get into that a little bit. If you don't know what Baby Driver is about, I kind of just stole the synopsis off IMDb. So Baby is coerced into working for a crime boss and finds himself taking part in a heist doomed to fail. So this is directed by Edgar Wright and stars Ansel Elgort. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but he's not been in a whole lot. He was in Fault in Our Stars. I think he's the boy who dies in that movie. Spoiler alert. He's been in some other things that I'm not seeing him in, so I wasn't really familiar with his stuff. But then, of course, he has a great supporting cast in Kevin Spacey, John Berthnall, John Hamm, Lily James, and then Eliza Gonzalez, who, again, I've not seen her in anything either, but she was great as well. So by now, you've probably heard the praise that this movie's getting. At something I saw a couple weeks ago, I don't remember what it was, but I saw it with my wife Brittany. They had a trailer that was just like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was like a review trailer, and I've never seen them do that in a theater before, but they have been pushing this movie pretty hard because it's been getting such great reviews, and all of that praise is, for the most part, pretty warranted. This is a great film. It's a lot of fun. It tells an interesting story in an interesting way. However, I will say it's not necessarily the masterpiece it's being made out to be.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. It's a really great movie. The action's amazing. The car chase scenes are probably some of the best I've ever seen. I know Edgar Wright did everything practical, and you can tell that there was an immense effort put into those chase scenes, and there's a lot of care put into it. And then the acting is great as well, because, I mean, look at the cast that I just read off. They're all so great. The story makes you just care about the characters and the outcome of the craziness. The soundtrack plays a really big part of the movie. It reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy quite a bit, and it really elevates the movie. It's part of the story. It's part of Baby, which is really cool to watch. So all that great stuff being said, like I kind of hinted at, there are parts of it that are flawed and feel a little bit disjointed. I would say the first act and the third act are both amazing, but the second act is a bit muddled. So just the smack dab middle of the movie is still, I think, one of the best movies of the year. I just don't know that it will stand the test of time like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz have.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what you think whenever you see it, but I would go in with tempered expectations because all of the reviews are just so amazing for it. I just don't think it's a masterpiece, but it is a really fun, great movie.
Yeah, this is a movie that I am really looking forward to. My wife and I have a long weekend this weekend because of the 4th of July, so we're planning on seeing a few movies. Despicable Me 3 comes out this weekend as well, and maybe they decided to release Baby Driver a couple days early, maybe trying to... I mean, I wouldn't assume that Baby Driver is going to lose a ton of its audience to Despicable Me 3, but there will be a little overlap, I'm sure. But yeah, my wife and I will probably go see both of those movies, if not another movie, this weekend. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I have not seen it, obviously. But yeah, Edgar Wright is really great. I kind of wish we had gotten to see his Ant-Man movie, even though I did like Ant-Man. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm looking forward to.
So when you go see Despicable Me 3, did you learn your lesson from
Yes,
Cars 3?
I basically told my wife, I was like, I'm too old. I cannot go by myself. You have to go with me. And I mean, she likes Despicable Me. I think we've seen the other two together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's totally down to go see it with me. She actually usually likes animated movies. She just doesn't like Cars, rightfully so, because they're not great movies. So, I mean, she has good taste as far as that's concerned. So, yeah, I'm not going to go see an animated movie by myself ever again, probably, unless it's something that I just, like Sausage Party or something like that, where I know it's not going to be a ton of kids anyways.
Yeah, makes for a good podcast story, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are you into, man?
All right, so I'm going to talk about the new Pokemon Go update. Obviously, this was released a year ago, almost a year ago today. I think it was released like July 7th or something like that. We're recording this on June 30th. So, yeah, it's been almost a year since it was released. And obviously, it was a sensation. It took the world by storm when it first came out, and it's died down drastically since then. I know, Tyler, you don't really play this hardly at all, if at all, anymore.
I do not.
So I kind of go through phases with this game. I'll play it pretty hardcore for a while, and then I won't open up the app for a couple of weeks. And I kind of go back and forth. Like when this first came out, for the first, I would say 5 or 6 months, I played it just nonstop. Despite its flaws, I still kind of put in the time and really got into this game quite a lot. But like I said, I don't play it as much, but there's always something that kind of brings me back. I know for a while there, after the first like 4 or 5 months, I stopped playing, not completely, but I didn't play it as much. And then they instituted the buddy system, and I was like, okay, this is cool, kind of. And so I started playing it a little bit more. And then I honestly don't play it as much anymore because we live in Evansville, like we've talked about before, and there's really not a ton to do in the game in Evansville. So usually when I play it, it's like, oh, well, we went to Indiana Comic-Con. That whole weekend, I played the shit out of that game because there's so much of those, like the gyms and Pokestops and stuff like that downtown, and you can catch so much because there's so many Pokemon around. Like when we went to Vegas not too long ago for my birthday, I played it as well during that weekend. So it's just like Evansville just sucks. There's another reason why Evansville sucks is Pokemon Go. Definitely not top 10 reasons, but it's definitely up there. So they just came out with this big update, and it was big because they kind of restructured how the gyms work. Before this update, basically the gyms were level 1 through 10, and you could, if your team, Red Team, Team Valor, if Team Valor had a gym and it was only a level 1 gym, I could go in there and train with that Pokemon and keep prestiging it up till level 10 and just keep throwing on more and more Pokemon. Well, you can only do one at a time, but if you had more teammates nearby, you could basically just level it up. And it got to the point where at the start of the game, when they first released the game, gyms were just going crazy. Like they were just, I mean, you could never keep a gym for longer than, I think, like 5-10 minutes, like especially in bigger cities. But it got to the point where not enough people were playing. Well, not as many people were playing. And so the gyms got pretty ridiculous to bring down because whoever was playing was really into the game. And so the Pokemon were really hardcore. So they changed the way that they do the gym. So basically when you take a gym, so if I were to take a gym for Team Valor, you automatically have 6 spots already. So you're not going to prestige it up anymore. 6 is it. You automatically can put 6 Pokemon in there, and there's motivation. So when you put in a Pokemon, immediately it starts losing CP if it's not motivated, and you can feed it berries and stuff like that. You can get candy and Stardust for feeding friendly Pokemon is what they call them, berries. So I mean, it just adds a lot more to the experience and the playing the gyms. Like I really like the fact that yes, the gyms still aren't perfect, and the game certainly isn't perfect. There's still plenty of things that they need to fix. But I just like the fact that even though it was a sensation when it was released and they made a ton of money off of it, they didn't just like sit back and relax. Like they obviously saw that there was flaws in the game, some big ones, especially when it first came out where the servers were crashing and all that stuff. They were always willing to fix that and kind of try to make the game better, even though it was doing really well. So yeah, the new gym system isn't great, but it's brought me back into the game, and I like it better than the old system. I'm looking forward to just being able to fight people, like just player versus player sort of thing. I'm still waiting for that. That'd be really cool. But until then, I'm definitely think this gym update is definitely a step in the right direction. I just like the fact that they're willing to evolve the game a little bit.
For sure. I don't know that it'll bring me back to it, but maybe if they ever do the player versus player, I would come back. But
yeah, it just seems like that's the most obvious thing to do, and it seems obvious to me. But as a developer, there's probably so much problems with that as far as getting that to work correctly. But I mean, it was released, and one of the coolest things about it was you were basically just playing poker. Like you could literally go around and catch them like you were. Your avatar was in the actual game, the Game Boy games and stuff like that. So that was what made it cool. And another big thing about that game is or the original Pokemon games is that you would come across other trainers and then that's when you would fight them. And that was really cool. And just to have that big piece of the game missing from Pokemon Go, I don't understand why it's taken them this long to do it. Like I said, I'm not a developer, so I don't know how much work goes into that, but it just seems silly that we're a year away from the release and we're still not, it doesn't seem like any closer to getting player versus player.
Yeah, who knows? They may never do it.
I think they will. Like, I hope they will.
Cool.
All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I've been a bad nerd the last month. I haven't been to a comic book shop since I've been out of town, which has been a bummer because that's always a highlight of my week. That being said, I did my comic book shopping online this week, as I have done the last month, and I read a comic that kind of caught my eye on Comixology. It's a number one. It's Blood Brothers number one. It's by Dynamite Comics, or put out by Dynamite Comics. It's written by an author named Fabian Rangel Jr., and it's drawn by Javier Martin Gaba. And so I did some research on it before I started reading it, and it was originally a Kickstarter campaign that was picked up by Dynamite for solicitation. It follows the Solis brothers. Their names are Diego and Gabe. They're detectives in their hometown, but the kind of twist in the story is that their hometown and I guess the world, but it being a number one issue, it hasn't really dove in so far.
Sure.
It's populated by creatures and monsters from legend and fantasy. So just kind of walking around everyday life. So each of the brothers has their like specific niche. Diego can communicate with ghosts, and Gabe is a luchador whose skin glows when monsters are about to attack. His skin starts to glow. So
he's basically Frodo's sword.
Yeah, so kind of weird, but it is the opening issue of the series, so we have to be introduced to the characters. You don't
get that reference though, right? Because you don't like Lord of the Rings.
I know, I get the reference.
Okay.
Did you expect me to laugh more? Or
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool reference. Just whatever.
You're so awesome, Pat, with your sweet ass references.
All right, continue. Sorry.
So, opening issue of the series, like I was saying, so you got to introduce the characters. So we find Diego getting drunk in a bar after a long day. His brother, the Frodo sword, comes in and lets him know that they've been summoned for a case because, again, they are detectives. So the two head to the police station.
I've forgotten that part.
There's a lot going on with them already. So they're basically told that an ancient Aztec skull has been stolen from a museum. They look into the situation. They're told by the museum curator that the skull may or may not be cursed with mythological powers.
Of course.
And are told that the priest whose skull it is from back in those time, the Aztec times. I don't know when that was. You're the history guy. When was Aztec times?
Well, it's BC. I don't I don't have an exact time frame. Sorry about that.
All right, putting that degree to good use.
Yeah, well, you kind of ambushed me a little bit, you sumbitch.
So basically, the priest whose skull was in the museum, his last words were a curse. And then she talks about a group of men that dug up the skeleton and how everybody just was like, oh, fucking curse, no big deal. And then they all died in mysterious ways, which leads to a twist in the story that I won't spoil, but it definitely planted seeds for where this series is headed. That is the first issue, and as you can tell, there's a lot going on.
Is there like 100 pages to this book?
It's like normal 30 pages. So it's, as you can probably tell, it's off the wall, but it's a lot of fun. It's already building unique characters that you instinctively care about because of their brotherly bond. I love the use of the supernatural in this comic as well. The art is amazing. So especially the coloring. The artist who I named earlier, Javier Martin Gaba, he does the drawing and the coloring, and it's great. And he makes everything pop, and it really captures your attention really well. And then, of course, like I said, I love how offbeat the story is. So this comic in particular, it ends with a confrontation between the brothers and a pack of werewolf gangsters. If that's any indication, if you haven't gotten it already, of the tone of this comic. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much when I picked this up, but I think I may have found a new staple for my reading routine because, I mean, there's nothing out there like it. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I'll probably check it out.
Awesome, man. What'd you read?
I read something we've talked a lot about between the two of us. Secret Empire #5 just came out this past week. And I know we talked about this a lot, and we generally try to mix it up so we're not talking about the same books all the time. But this is a big event, obviously, in the Marvel comic universe. So I feel like we should talk about it every time it gets released. I've talked about, again, a lot about this book. I think it's really good, but it's certainly not perfect. I really, really like the artwork so far in this book, but I do have a tiny nitpick in this particular issue. So artwork is great, but I felt like, and it wasn't even necessarily the artwork in this book, but there was a missed opportunity, I think, in this book, because there was an opportunity for a really cool fight scene, and they just kind of, instead of expanding it and allowing us to see what's happening, they smashed it into like 2 panels. And I was like, man, that would have been a really cool fight to see. Instead, you get to see like part of it, and then it's over. And I was just really, really disappointed with it. So the artwork itself was fine. I just felt like as a comic book construction, I don't know exactly how you would describe it, it was a missed opportunity because it could have been a really cool part. Instead, they decided to use the panels that could have been used for that cool fight scene just for more story, which is not bad, but they could have had a really cool moment in this book, and they chose not to utilize that. And so that was a little bit disappointing. It's also kind of tough to follow some stuff. There's way too many moving parts in this story that I don't think really blend together all that well. They're starting to come together a little bit better in issue 5, but it's still definitely just disjointed. I've said this before. I think the last time I talked about it, especially with issue 4, it just felt like we were reading miniature stories that didn't really have a whole lot to do with one another. So I don't think they necessarily blend the stories together very well. There is a Steve Rogers, not just Captain America, but there's this other Steve Rogers story that I fucking hate. That every time I see it, I'm just like, God damn it, let's just get this over with. Can I just fast forward through this? And then they had this weird cliffhanger. It wasn't really a cliffhanger because it wasn't even at the end of the book. But as far as this part of the story is concerned, there was a cliffhanger. But I don't give a shit about this part, so I don't care what's happening with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to play a huge role in getting Captain America back to being Captain America, because you know that's fucking happening for sure. But I honestly don't care, and it's not affecting what I actually care about in this story so far. So it's very disappointing so far. I will say that they do try to do a lot of cliffhangers, and they're kind of disappointing. Like, there's a cliffhanger with that, like I just mentioned, and then there's a cliffhanger at the end of issue 5 that it's cool, but I don't know if it's going to pay off the way I want it to pay off. So we'll see. As far as that's concerned, it's trying too hard with the cliffhangers, and it's definitely disappointing. Just tell the fucking story.
Yeah, I haven't read 4 or 5 yet. I liked what I read quite a bit, but this sounds disappointing. So, I mean, of course I'm going to stick with it, but
yeah. I really liked the first couple of issues, and it just hasn't lived up to that since then. It's not bad by any means. It's still a really good book. It's just, I'm definitely seeing a lot more flaws than I was seeing in the first couple of issues.
All right, cool.
All right, so what do you have for nerd news this week?
So there was a live stream last night on Adult Swim concerning Rick and Morty, a show that we both watch, and they announced the season 3 premiere date. I guess not counting the premiere episode that was released on April Fool's Day, but it will be back on the air July 30th.
Yep.
And I watched part of the live stream, and they didn't put it together very well.
Oh, yeah?
They didn't really know what they wanted to do, and it was kind of funny. I mean, Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland kind of joked about it, and they made light of it, but it was It was a little hard to watch a couple times, so I turned it off. But they also released a trailer for season 3, and I mean, it looks really funny. So I'm looking forward to this being back on the air quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is a show that you got me into because you talked about it a couple of times on the podcast, and I binge watched it on Hulu, and I fell in love with it. I've actually rewatched the first season again. I just really, really love that show, especially the first season is really good. I mean, the second season's still really good, but I definitely like the first season. I think the first season is a little bit funnier. I think they go for a little bit more high concept in the second season and kind of bring a little bit more mythology to the show, which is not bad.
Yeah.
But they did something a little bit similar with Community, and they kind of took it a little too far in that show. So I'm kind of afraid that they might do the same thing with Rick and Morty. But the first episode of season 3 that you mentioned was on Hulu, I think, for a while there, even after they released it on April Fool's. So I was able to watch it, and I really enjoyed it. So I have high hopes for season 3 for sure.
Awesome. So the next 2 stories concern trailers.
Okay.
That you
I probably haven't watched.
Didn't watch because you're not a trailer guy, but I do want to bring them up. The first is one that you probably have no interest in anyway, but I do have a couple thoughts on it, and that is the Jumanji trailer.
I saw that it was released, and I couldn't care less.
So it's the name of the movie now is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle.
Of course it is.
And the trailer kind of confirms the rumors last year about what the plot was going to be about, and that is that 4 students are in detention in high school, and they find an old video game console instead of a board game because it's 2017, and they play it, and instead of the Jumanji world coming to our world, they are transplanted to the jungle, and they are turned into the characters that they picked to play the game. So, we have The Rock, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and Karen Gillan, and they're actually high school students' minds in these bodies. And it does not look great.
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
Hard to believe, right? Yeah.
That seems like one note. Like, that would get tired so quickly.
I was tired of it after the trailer. So, of course, like the shy kid becomes The Rock. And the jock becomes Kevin Hart. The pretty stuck-up girl becomes Jack Black. And then the modest nerd girl becomes Karen Gillan. And if she's dressed really scantily, and that's the whole joke.
Yeah.
So you're going to do that for an entire movie. And I don't know. So I really liked the Jumanji movie from the 90s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was like a staple of my childhood. It was a lot of fun. But part of watching that movie was you never saw the jungle. And it was one of those things where I guess when you read a book and you imagine this world, and then you see
show, don't tell. Or no, what was it? Yes, I said it right. Never mind.
So basically, whenever I had an imagination, like back in the 90s when I was a child, I had like this big world because I was just obsessed with that movie, and I had imagined what the jungle looked like, and now you get to see it, and it's Hawaii. So I don't know. I'm not very excited for this movie. I agree that the franchise maybe shouldn't just be done with that one movie. I think that there was more stories to maybe tell, but I don't think they did it correctly.
I mean, we'll see it probably. We'll review it probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's on our slate to review, but a lot can change between now and Christmas. So
yeah. Oh, I didn't know we had it planned out that far ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. I got a little carried away one day. But we'll see. A lot of movies coming out on Christmas Day, so we might review something else because it does not look great. The other trailer, and I'm curious if you watched this one, was for the new Inhumans TV show.
Yes. I watched a little bit of it. Just because...
that's a good indication of what I thought of it as well.
I am not a huge fan of Inhumans as a general rule. I don't mind like the royal family or whatever you want to call them, especially because I think Black Bolt can be a really interesting character when he's done right. I'm a huge dog person, so I love Lockjaw. I think bulldogs are awesome, and I just love the fact that it's a bulldog. So I think that's phenomenal. The CGI, not bad. Like if that's what it's going to look like, I'm cool with it. But I just don't like that it's basically the Inhumans are just X-Men that Marvel can use now. Yeah, like that's all that is. Now I understand, don't get me wrong, I understand that they have a different history and all that stuff. But when you break it down, that's all they are, just so they could make a different X-Men comic and eventually a different X-Men show without using the term X-Men.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think that the show looks pretty bad. And I, granted, don't know much about the Inhumans outside of like the Civil War II stuff from the comics where there's an Inhuman kind of at the
Did
center
you
of all
ever
that.
watch an Infinity, or not Infinity, read Infinity? It might have been before you got really into comics.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was whenever we were both starting to get right back into it, but I was still just reading Batman and you were picking up extra stuff. So no, I did not read that.
Yeah, Black Bolt plays a pretty big role in that.
So is that a thing? He just doesn't talk in the comics because he kills people?
Yeah, that's his power.
Okay. Interesting. I thought one of the more disappointing things for me was Iwan Rheon, who played Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones. He's in this show as Maximus. I thought that he's great on Game of Thrones, but his acting was pretty rough in this trailer.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
So that was disappointing. I know there's been a lot of backlash about Medusa's wig, which
it looks stupid.
It looks bad, but I could give two fucks about that if it's a good show. I just don't.
Well,
think
I think it's
interesting.
Just people that care about that character.
Yeah,
that's her whole thing. So if it looks bad, then I guess if you're interested in the character, which I'm not, but she's actually the least interesting character of the whole bunch as far as I'm concerned.
She's got a hair thing.
Yeah, and she's currently dating Johnny Storm, which I think is fucking stupid. They try to, like, in the comic, at least what I was reading, in Uncanny Inhumans, way back, it was probably almost a year ago when I was reading that book. I dropped it after like 4 or 5 issues, but basically they just try to have this drama between the three of them because she used to be married to Black Bolt and now she's dating Johnny Storm, and Black Bolt's like this superhero club owner. It was really, really dumb and I hated it, so I dropped it.
Woof.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that was a pun because of the Lockjaw? No.
Oh, no.
No pun?
No. I'm not familiar with Lockjaw either, so he's a dog?
Yeah, he's a dog.
Is he like
telepathic?
Oh, so he can like talk to people, but not like with his mouth, with his mind.
Yeah, that's what telepathic means.
Yeah, that. I just didn't want you to think I didn't know what telepathic meant. So, last thing is that Carnage is going to be the villain in the Venom movie, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but
awesome. I love when you do that.
I'm curious who you would cast as Carnage.
So. We've talked about this before. Once you kind of get that idea in your brain, it's hard to see anybody else. I just recently saw an article where I don't know his name, but he plays, I don't even want to call him Joker in Gotham, but
Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah, he said that he wanted to play Carnage, and it's like, I could see it. He's so over the top in Gotham, but that show's so over the top itself. So I think that's just part of what they think is a good character. I don't know. I think he'd be all right. It's kind of tough now that I have that image in my brain to kind of take that out.
Yeah, I agree. And some people went a step further and did like fan art of him as the character. And so now that's stuck in my brain. And of course, Carnage's real name is Cletus Cassidy, right?
Yep.
So he has red hair. And so you automatically think, it has to be an actor with red hair. And there's not a ton of those. But, you can dye hair, or you could not have him have red hair or whatever. So, there's a lot of I was really wanting Daniel Day-Lewis, but we talked about last week he retired.
Well, he's still got that Paul Thomas Anderson movie coming up.
Oh, does he have one more?
Yeah.
That's good. But but not Carnage. Not Venom.
No, it's not that movie for sure. That would be a weird thing for him to do. Weird. It would be weird for Daniel Day-Lewis to do it, and obviously we're just joking around. But for Paul Thomas Anderson to do a superhero movie, that would be super trippy.
Oh, yeah. I don't really like his stuff that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I hated Inherent Vice.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was all right.
I hated it.
All right. So we're drawing the line in the sand about Inherent Vice.
No, but I don't have a good person that I would like to see in that role either. So, we'll see. Whatever.
I would. If you had asked me a month ago Do I think Tom Hardy is going to play Venom? I would say fuck no. Like that doesn't seem like something that he would do. So I guess if they could get him to play that character, I mean, everybody basically except for Sean Connery and Daniel Day-Lewis, who we both know are retired, are off the table, I guess, at this point.
Jared Leto would have been all right, but of course, I mean, he can't do it at this point. So whatever, man. Who gives a fuck? All right.
Okay.
On to the main topic.
All right, so last week we started our Pixar film retrospective. They have 18 films, so we just did the first 9 last episode, so obviously we're going to finish it out this episode and finish with the last 9. We stopped last episode at WALL-E, so we're just going to pick up right where we left off. I'm actually really excited about this part of the retrospective, not because we're going to argue about Toy Story 3, which I am excited about, but I feel like even though the first couple of movies of Pixar's were really good, I think this is definitely their prime for Pixar, even though there's some shit in there, and we'll get to that. But I think that they really found their stride this part of the retrospective, the second half. So
I don't know, man. I think you're high. Well,
really? I mean, yeah, there's definitely some shit in there.
There's some really good ones and some really shitty ones.
Okay.
Hey, just to touch base on last week, did you watch anything that we talked about?
Nope.
All right.
I watched Monsters University.
I saw you logged that on Letterboxd, and I was like, what the fuck? he's fucking seen that.
I have seen that quite a few times. I really want to watch it again.
That's a good one. We'll talk about it here in a few.
Yep. All right. So the first movie that we're going to talk about this episode is Up, which was released in 2009. It was directed by Peter Docter and Bob Peterson. We talked about this with Monsters University, Monster Inc. Pixar puts out a lot of great movies, but some of their concepts aren't very high concept.
Yeah.
Just what can we make talk? And I think this goes along kind of in the same category as Monsters, Inc. It does really have a pretty cool concept. Basically, this old guy ties balloons to his house so he can travel to South America. So it's definitely a weird concept, but what really carries this movie is the heart. That montage sequence at the beginning, I mean, it blows me away every time. It's just like a master's course in storytelling.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's just a lifelong relationship kind of cut into 2 minutes, but you still feel really connected to these characters. I'm getting kind of chills just thinking about it. It's crazy how effective that just 2 minutes of the movie is. It was actually the second animated film nominated for Best Picture, which the next film that we're going to talk about followed it. Then the following year, Toy Story 3. It's funny because I won my Oscar pool that year because the person I think that came in second didn't pick Up to win the Best Animated Feature. And I gave him shit because I was like, it's the only animated feature film that was nominated for Best Picture and Best Animated. So obviously it's the Best Animated film. So I basically got a free win that year. So, but back to the movie, I think the third act, and we've talked about this before with Pixar, I mean, being computer animated, their animation is just top notch. It's beautiful, but that third act, because they're in the jungle, really lets Pixar shine as far as the animation is concerned. Is the world that they have to build is really beautiful. Like I said, I love dogs, so I love that dog plays such a big role in this film, and that he's kind of the comic relief. I will say that Carl and Russell's dynamic is a little predictable for me. And just I've seen it done, that relationship done, and quite a few movies before it.
For sure.
But it's still a really, really solid movie.
Yeah, so last episode I talked about how WALL-E had no right to be as good as it is. And I think the same can be said for Up. It's the third best Pixar movie, in my opinion. And I'm not talking favorite. I'm saying best made movie, their best work. This would be third for me. It's an adult story for sure, with humor and childish elements kind of sprinkled in. But make no mistake, this is a drama, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think that it offers great insight into getting older and experiencing loss and life not being over just because you're older.
Yeah.
So obviously those themes make it one of the best. And I mean, this movie is amazing, if only for that opening montage and the story it tells and pulls. Like, I remember seeing it in theaters and just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm crying like 3 minutes in. So this movie is fantastic.
Oh yeah, for sure. So moving right along, the one that I've been waiting quite a while to talk about. Tyler and I have had this argument a couple of times, but I don't know if we've officially had it on the podcast yet. So the next movie that we're going to talk about is Toy Story 3, which was released in 2010. It was directed by our old buddy Lee Onrick, which I really hope that that's how you pronounce his name. So we are going to disagree about the ending of this film, or I guess what should have been the ending of this film, but we're not going to disagree, obviously, on how great the film is. It is very, very funny. I think it's a well-paced film. It sort of kind of breaks the structure of the first two films, kind of that familiar territory of, oh, well, Woody and Buzz get lost and try to get back with the group. Yeah, that does happen a little bit in this movie. So it still does kind of touch on that familiar territory, but it does break that formula a little bit. So I appreciated that. It's definitely, I think, the most mature of the three films as far as the storytelling and just the story it tries to tell. So, like I said, we're going to disagree with what should have been the ending, the dumpster fire.
Can we save that?
Okay, yeah.
So
go ahead.
Before we get into our disagreement on the ending, I do want to say a couple things before we get fired up. So this movie was in my top 10 all time when we did that last year. So obviously I'm all in here. I grew up with Toy Story, talked about that in the last episode when we talked about 1 and 2. And it's just, for me, it's my life almost lines up exactly with Andy and the journey he takes from Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 3. When this was released, he's going to college.
I didn't know your dad had polio.
Which I posted on the Facebook. That was debunked. So I don't even know why the fuck I brought up that last episode. But no, I mean, this movie picks up with him going to college. And at the time I was in like my first or second or third year of college. So pretty close. So it's not about getting older and ditching your toys. It's about the change that comes with getting older, which is something that I still struggle with. So again, kind of like Up, it's an adult story told through the eyes of talking toys, which is just crazy, the creativity that goes into that and the brilliance that goes into that. And I will say that there aren't many trilogies that are as strong from start to finish as Toy Story is. And I know we're getting into the future a little bit here, but that's kind of why I'm pretty nervous about Toy Story 4.
Oh yeah, for
sure.
But
I will admit that I'm glad that these characters aren't going away since they've been a part of my life for so long. So, I mean, they're strong characters and they can make good movies with them, obviously, but I don't know that Toy Story 3 will ever be topped because it is pretty phenomenal.
Yes, it is. Okay, so the dumpster fire. So at the end of the movie, as I'm sure you guys know, they're all together and they're kind of getting pushed into this dumpster fire, and they all hold hands. But then, of course, because it's an animated film and it's, even though it's an adult story, it's still geared towards kids. So they eventually find themselves rescued and they don't go into the fire. I was disappointed, and I'm still disappointed. I've seen it a few times. I thought my disappointment would wane. I thought that would be kind of the perfect ending to their story. I know that sounds really morbid, but I just feel like that would have been a better ending to the story, to the trilogy, because they're trying to tell more mature and adult stories. They're all together. They all kind of accept it. They're together. I just feel like they kind of copped out a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, they copped out by not murdering a bunch of like kid characters, like kid favorite characters in a children's movie.
Okay, so some of my favorite movies of all time are movies that take your assumptions and take the predictability of most movies and turn that on its head. Like Night of the Living Dead. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched that movie, definitely watch it. But at the end, he still dies. He still gets shot. And I think that's a fantastic ending.
Which is
Planet
a zombie movie for adults, rated R.
Planet of the Apes, same thing. Those are one of the reasons why, I mean, other than the fact that those are phenomenal films by themselves, but the ending, the fact that it does not go where you think it's going to go, where every other movie would go. Yes, Toy Story 3 is a phenomenal movie, but I think it would have been even better if they didn't go the conventional path, the easy path. I think it would have been a better movie.
Talking about murdering kid favorite characters.
They're not murdering. No one's going there like a little toy. Jason isn't slashing them up with a machete. They're just falling in the dumpster fire.
You're dumb, man. So I mean, I think I could. My point.
I'm definitely in the minority here for sure.
Yeah, I think you're about the only one. So I mean, I'm not. I mean, my point can be summed up with this as a fucking kids movie. You can't kill these characters.
Yeah, but that's what Pixar's built their reputation
so
on.
I have a question for you.
Sorry. So
how would you have ended it? Just they all die and then credits?
I don't know if I would go directly to credits from there. That's a pretty hard cut.
I don't know what else you put in there because all the main characters are dead.
I don't know.
I will say one thing about that scene is like I remember sitting there watching it for the first time, just like they can't get out of this. There's nothing that can get them out of this. They're all in there, and then they're saved by the three aliens. I think that was cheap. I don't like how they were saved from it. I don't think they should have died, obviously, but I wish there was something more emotional than the three aliens just swing in and scoop them out. So I wish that there was something better that they could have cut to with that. But they should not have died. I think you're just being a troll.
I honestly, I really love this movie quite a lot. I don't have this opinion for the sake of having a weird opinion. I think, like I said, I enjoy movies that are unpredictable. And I just think that would have been, they took the easy way out.
I don't feel, so I was still caught off guard with the end. So the end, Andy donates all the toys to Bonnie.
Yep.
He's going to hold on to Woody, but then Woody basically forces Andy to donate him as well to Bonnie. And that caught, I mean, looking back on it, like, yeah, it fucking makes sense. But that did catch me off guard. And I feel like that's such a huge emotional moment. Like, that's where I tear up. I don't tear up when the toys are about to die. That's when I tear up, is there at the end with Andy and Woody. So just to get to that moment, I obviously don't want them to die in a fucking fire. So
to each its own. Speaking of a dumpster fire, our next movie is Cars 2,
which I didn't realize it. How did they go from Toy Story 3 to this bullshit?
I don't know, man. It was really, they fell off the cliff for sure for the next couple of movies. It was released in 2011, directed by John Lasseter, which I did not know he directed this movie. I was very disappointed with that.
Right?
Like, I just assumed that it was some dipshit. Also, Brad Lewis. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to call you, insinuate that you're a dipshit. So I absolutely hate this film, as you can probably tell. It's not a bad Pixar film. It's a bad film altogether. Like, even if you're judging by that high criteria, it's a bad movie altogether. It's one thing that we love about Pixar is that they raise the standard, and they don't just make animated movies for kids. They try to tell these adult stories that happen to be in the animated genre. But Cars, the first one is kind of lowest common denominator, but Cars 2 is just flat out cartoon garbage. It's really, really bad. I don't think either one of us has even finished this film. I know that I haven't finished it, and the last time I checked, you hadn't watched it.
I watched it for our retrospective.
Okay.
So a few years ago when Minions came out, I wrote a scathing review of it on the website, thenerdspodcast.com, one of the few things I've written for the website. And I think
the last thing that you've written for the website.
Yeah. So I was 2 years ago, actually. Yeah, almost exactly. So I was particularly harsh on that film because the heart of the Despicable Me movies that came before it wasn't there. It was just a movie about stupid Minion jokes. And for me, this falls kind of into that category. This movie has no heart, which says a lot because even Cars 1 and 3, movies that you and I don't particularly like, try to tell a story with value. So I'm not sure how or why this got cranked out by a studio that seems to hold themselves above this quality, but it is the biggest blemish on their filmography for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's absolute garbage.
Yep.
The storytelling is really bad. You feel like you're almost watching two different stories, and I don't give a shit about either one of them.
100%.
All right, so let's just move right along and forget we ever had to talk about that movie. Brave, which was released in 2012, was directed by Brenda Chapman and Steve Purcell. I appreciate what they were trying to do with Brave. There's not a ton of strong female characters, especially in the animated genre. So I appreciate that they were trying to do that to give girls a hero to look up to, especially when they're going to Disney World or Disneyland, whatever, to have that hero to look up to. However, the story kind of leaves you wanting more just because it's, I don't want to say it's like lowest common denominator, like I said with Cars 2, but I think it's ironic that a movie called Brave doesn't really take a whole lot of chances. Like it's a pretty predictable story. In a vacuum, it's not a bad film, but it's bad considering those high standards that I talked about with Pixar, especially coming off Cars 2. It looks really, really bad because you have that dumpster fire of a movie, like I said, with Cars 2, and then you don't really rebound all that well with Brave.
So I only saw this movie once, if I'm being honest. I didn't see it in theaters.
I've only seen it once.
And I didn't see it till I got it on Blu-ray. So obviously, only having watched it once, it did not do much for me. And I just think that the family turning into bears thing was a little too out there for my taste because it plays itself so straight until that moment. And I know that they were trying to tell like a family story, but I feel like The Incredibles does the human family story much better, in my opinion, than this movie does. All of that being said, not for me. It's not a bad movie. I do appreciate the female character, the female director. It was doing Wonder Woman stuff way before that movie got made. That being said, this is one of Brittany's favorite movies.
Really?
Yeah, right? So I think that the reason is obviously it's important, like I was saying, because it's centered on a strong heroine, and maybe that's why it speaks more to her than me. But just out of curiosity, I shot her a text before we started recording and asked her what draws her to Brave. And she said how independent Merida is and the mother-daughter relationship that they show in the movie, which Brittany's very close with her mom. So not for me, I guess, because I'm not a female and
that could be debated.
The mother-son relationship is a little different than a mother-daughter relationship. So I respect this movie. I love that my wife loves it, but it's not something I'm going to rush home and watch.
Sure. All right. So the next movie is Monsters University, which was released in 2013, directed by Dan Scanlon. I don't understand why this movie isn't talked about as one of Pixar's best. Maybe because it's a prequel. That's the only thing that I can think of. It started Monsters Inc. started with this high concept that we talked about last week. And I just really, really appreciate how Monsters University just expands on that concept and the universe. I love that Mike and Sully start off as rivals and that Randy was Mike's first friend. And I just think that's awesome. Basically, every time that you think you know where their story's going, they flip it on its head. And I just really, really appreciate that. A lot of things are kind of cliche with animated films because they're for kids, and Pixar has made a name for themselves for kind of going away from that. And I really liked how a lot of times in the genre, everything works out for these characters. You know that nothing bad really is gonna happen to these characters because they're gonna work it out at the end, and it doesn't work out for these two characters at the end.
Yep.
But because they kind of started from the bottom and then they kind of worked their way to the top. I was really trying to avoid saying that like Drake, but I think I did all right. Anyways, I just think that's a really good message for kids. It's like, oh, yeah, it didn't work out at first, but they just kind of worked their asses off and kind of made it work for them. So I really appreciated that. We do talk a lot about Rotten Tomatoes on this podcast. And so just as curiosity, I checked the Rotten Tomatoes and it's only 78%, which I think is fucking stupid.
That is so
this movie is really, really good. And instead of watching The Incredibles, I actually just rewatched this movie because I love it so much. And it really does hold up.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if you put two and two together, but this is the first Pixar movie we reviewed on the podcast.
Oh, is it really? I thought it was Inside Out. I actually have a note saying this is where we started review. So I was wrong about that one, apparently.
I think so. Maybe now you're having me.
No, you're probably right. You're probably right because we had the rant about Monsters University not making the best animated film that year.
Which is dumb. But
oh, yeah, still dumb.
We do share the same opinion on this movie. I think that it is severely underrated. And sure, it's a prequel that no one really asked for. But for me, kind of to echo what you were saying, it teaches an important lesson that you don't usually find in animated movies. So you went the hard work route. I went the route with Mike specifically, which is that your dreams don't necessarily come true.
Yeah.
Despite what every other Disney movie in the world tells you. So not everyone can do everything. And sometimes it's okay. And that works out for the best. And it's not meant to be. So that speaks volumes to me because there aren't enough movies that kind of relay that message to kids. And it's important. So, and not only that, but it's fun and it's funny. And there's a lot of great comedy, just like the first Monsters, Inc. movie. So this is high up there for me. If we were to do our favorite Pixar movies, this would probably maybe be top 5, if not top 5, very close because it's strong.
It's
to me.
Tough if we're thinking top 5 because you're automatically going to put the first 3 Toy Story. Well, maybe I'd
maybe not 2.
Yeah, maybe not 2.
Yeah, maybe top. Man, they have such a great filmography.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe top 5, maybe not.
All right.
Which is better, this or Monsters Inc.?
I have to give it to the original just because it was the first one, but it's really, really close.
Yeah, me too. So maybe definitely not top 5. But, okay. Yeah, but I still like it a lot. If that come across,
sure.
So.
All right. So the next film that we're going to talk about is Inside Out, which was released in 2015, directed by Peter Docter and Ronnie D. Carmen. I had a note, like I said, that we reviewed every movie since then, but apparently we also reviewed Monsters University. On the surface, it seems like another one of those crazy concepts by Pixar, like Monsters University and Monsters Inc. and Up and so on and so forth. But actually, if you kind of break it down to its core, it's pretty kind of goes back to that formula of Pixar. Just let's make toys talk. Let's make bugs talk. Let's make emotions talk. But the world that they build, once they kind of get you with that concept, is just so detailed and so fantastic. I love it. Just kind of seeing all the detail that they put into this movie. The voice actors are beautifully cast. Amy Poehler as Joy, Bill Hader as Fear, Louis Black as Anger, and so on and so forth. I think they did a really good job of doing what I say every time we talk about an animated film is you need to get people that are famous enough to kind of get people in the seats, but also you don't want them to have that too unique of a voice that kind of overpowers the movie. Cause all I can think about is, oh, I'm listening to this person try to do an animated voice. I think that they did just a perfect job with the pitch of Bill Hader's voice. I think that he does Fear so well. Louis Black is kind of known as being the angry comedian, so he's perfect as Anger, and he does have a deeper voice, so he does play that really well. So I think they put a lot of care not into just the movie, but also the casting, which I think is fantastic. It's a great message for kids that it's okay to be sad sometimes, and that can kind of lead to the happier times. I will say that I generally take offense when people say that this is the return of Pixar, just because I love Monsters University so much that everybody says, oh, this is the return of Pixar. And I feel like they're not giving Monsters University credit, but it's definitely a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, so I was wrong. This is the first one we officially reviewed for the podcast because Monsters University came out the summer before we started the podcast, but I talked about it in my top 10 that year, which is where I got confused, so I apologize. But this is another extremely creative movie with an adult message that kids should hear. And you said it best. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be happy. We all have emotions that balance us out. And maybe we wouldn't appreciate the happy times if we didn't have the sad times. So all of that being said, it's also really funny as well. And like you said, very well voice acted. And of course, there's heartbreaking moments throughout the movie because it's Pixar. And if you don't tear up, it's not a Pixar movie. So I love the weight of that as well. And you can tell with this movie, they put out consistently great stuff, but every once in a while, like with Wall-E or Up or this, you can tell that there was extra care and love put into the filmmaking process with it. And they created a world within our minds, which is just, it takes so much creativity. So this movie is definitely up there as well.
All right. So moving right along.
Woof.
Is The Good Dinosaur, which was released in 2015. It was directed by Peter Sohn. So if it wasn't for Cars 2, this would probably be my least favorite
100%
Pixar movie. I certainly hate Cars 2 more than I hate this movie, but at least Cars 2 had good animation going for it. I don't think that the animation in this movie is very good. I think and I don't know if it's necessarily the animation. I think it's more of the design of it. Like the animation there's not any flaws to it. It just, I didn't like the cartoony version of the dinosaurs. It just seems like
it's weird.
It's I don't know, too simple for me. I would have liked a lot more detail with the dinosaurs. I feel like it's the least Pixar film as far as the story is concerned. They basically just took the story of Lion King and mixed it with The Land Before Time, and the result is just a shittier version of both of those movies. So why would you ever want to watch this movie? You could just watch The Lion King and get a better version of the story, or you could watch The Land Before Time and get a better animated dinosaur movie.
Yeah, so I agree. Second worst Pixar movie for sure. And I still have trouble wrapping my mind around what happened here. I initially heard, like, with that first teaser trailer and like the first synopsis, it was the movie that's about what if dinosaurs and humans coexisted. And I mistakenly assumed that it would be present day. And I thought that'd be kind of cool. Maybe like a Flintstones thing. And maybe there's a fun story to tell with a kid and his pet dinosaur. But instead it was the most, like you said, un-Pixar movie out of all of them. It felt like a DreamWorks movie. I'm not sure the lesson that it was trying to teach, and I don't think it knew what lesson it was trying to teach either. I don't know if it was family, which has been done by them way better, or being strong. I don't know, but it's all territory that they covered already. And the biggest light against it is that it's boring and it's not funny. It was a drag to sit through, and I'll never watch it again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was really, really bad. Like I said, if it wasn't for Cars 2, this would be the worst Pixar movie for sure. So let's just get that. We got that one out of the way. Let's just kind of move on. Finding Dory, which was released in 2016. It was directed by Andrew Stanton and Angus MacLean. MacLean. Talked about this with Finding Nemo. Neither one of us really got into that film, and obviously when you're talking about a sequel to an original film that neither one of us liked, it's pretty obvious that neither one of us really got into this film either. Like I said, we reviewed this film already, so you can kind of go into our more detailed thoughts on that if you want to check that episode out. But we're definitely in the minority with these movies because this is I would say Finding Nemo is probably second popular franchise as far as Pixar is concerned, second only to Toy Story. So it makes sense that they would make a sequel to one of their more popular films.
Yeah.
I remember watching this movie with you because we went and saw it Indie PopCon last year. Like, we're going to see Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go to Indy, and then Thursday night we're going to go see a movie, because once Indie PopCon starts, that weekend's really, really crazy. So we got to see our movie beforehand. So that was this movie last year for us. And I remember sitting in the theater, and we actually went to a Regal theater.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. I was actually kind of blown away by how nice it was. But anyways, every joke was just killing it in the theater, and I was just like, what's happening? Because I just don't get into these movies. I don't like Finding Nemo, and I didn't really particularly like Finding Dory that much. Finding Nemo is definitely better than Finding Dory, and I think most of that is because I think that Finding Dory is definitely a one-note character, and she can't carry her own movie, and it gets really old really quickly for me.
For sure. It's like, all right, you forget stuff. We get it. God damn.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a bad movie in the slightest. It's just similar to Finding Nemo for me. It's a movie that was for a generation that kind of skipped me. So it's just, I mean, it's not bad. I'll watch it again at some point. I don't think that it's not entertaining. It just didn't hit. So it's a sweet movie. There's funny parts that I can appreciate, but it just doesn't, it's not going to be something I revisit like the other films that we've praised. So it makes sense that it exists, but I think Dory's annoying. So
oh yeah, for sure.
For her carrying a whole movie like that is a bit much, but yeah.
All right, so the last film in our Pixar retrospective is a film that we literally just talked about 2 weeks ago. We reviewed it, Cars 3, which was directed by Brian Free. Like I said, we just talked about this 2 weeks ago, so there's not a whole lot of retrospecting to do. I mean, you could just check out that episode. There's not a whole lot that we can talk about. I haven't seen it since we watched it, because why would I do that? I didn't really like the movie to begin with. I definitely like it much more than I like Cars 2. They try to tell more of an adult story. I just don't care about the characters. I don't really like Cars that much. Not just Cars as the franchise, but I don't really get into cars in general. I drive a Hyundai Elantra, so obviously I don't get into cars. I'm not a car guy. I couldn't care less about any of that bullshit. So I'm not a big NASCAR guy at all. So it wasn't for me. I almost said a fine movie. It's not even that. We only gave it 2.5 stars.
Yeah. I don't think that this is a bad movie. I think that there's the audience for it, and it probably played a lot better to kids than it did to grown men. But, they did what they could with talking cars, which is what I kept echoing whenever we did our Cars 3 review. So there's only so much you can do with inanimate things that can talk to make me care about it. And I guess you could argue the whole Toy Story thing, but I don't know. I'm not a car guy either, so it just didn't hit for me, and is not something that I will revisit. But I will say that I appreciate they tried to get back to telling a more heavy story than what they did in Cars 2, and I hope that is a sign of things to come with the next movie, which is Coco. So hopefully that is more in the vein of WALL-E, Up, and Inside Out as far as original movies go. Yeah,
it looks like it's a much more complicated as far as the concept's concerned, and so I'm definitely looking forward to that, because it seems like, as kind of just wrapping up, it seems like the more original films generally for this studio ends up being the better films.
Absolutely.
When they just try to do the same thing that the other studios are doing is when they really struggle with The Good Dinosaur and Cars and things like that.
100%, man.
All right, so let's put a cap on this episode with a nerd favorite. So what's the question this week?
So we've done some Disney ones the last couple weeks, so I decided to kind of stray away from that. I talked about Baby Driver and what I was into, and Baby Driver stars, among other people, Kevin Spacey.
Okay.
And I don't believe we've done a favorite Kevin Spacey movie yet, so I just want to know what your favorite Kevin Spacey movie is. There's quite a few to choose from. I am going to go with 7.
Okay.
I can't remember if this was in my top 10 or not. It wouldn't be anymore if I were to redo it, but I still obviously love this movie. I love the noir aspects of it. The gory crime scenes that Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are dissecting. I love the detective aspect of it as well. I think that the performances in this movie are amazing. Specifically, Kevin Spacey, he plays John Doe very well. He plays creepy very well. I love that they never hint that he's in this movie until he's revealed to be the person behind all of this. And then at the end of the credits, it kind of starts off with Kevin Spacey as John Doe. And I think it's his best role because he plays the creepy guy just so well. And it's a movie that I watch a time or two a year. So for sure, 7 for me.
Yeah, it's a really, really good film. It's one of those films that some of the scenes stay with you forever. I still remember that the scene where Brad Pitt gets real close to that guy in the bed.
Yes.
And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to have watched that film when it came out because I was still too young to see that. And the big fat guy in the spaghetti, there's so many scenes in this movie that just stick with you.
I saw it sophomore year of high school for the first time. So basically when I was almost 17, almost of legal age to watch this movie. Actually, I don't know if it's a legal thing or not, but recommended age to watch this movie, and it still fucked with me.
I'm trying to look to see when it actually came out, but IMDb is not wanting.
97, 98?
95.
5, holy shit.
Oh.
Holds up well.
Yeah, I was what? 8 when I saw this movie.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it in theaters.
Did you piece together things like, hey, that guy was forced to have sex with that woman with a knife?
No, obviously things go over your head when you're that young. But yeah, I mean, it may have not been 95 when I saw it because I didn't see it. I think we rented it on VHS when it came out, but it was right when it came out on VHS. So I was either 8 or 9 when this film came out.
Damn. Yeah, that's some heavy stuff, dude.
Yeah, my parents didn't really care, and I love that about them. That's one thing that I've talked about in the past is they let us kind of just watch whatever we wanted, and they were always there to kind of keep it in perspective with, it's just a movie. It's just, they're just playing characters that's not real. Still, I was a kid, so stuff stuck with me, like vampire movies and stuff like that would kind of freak me out sometimes. But they were always there to kind of shelter me a little bit. So if I were to ever have kids, it's something that I would definitely think about doing. Now, I'm not showing my kid 7 when he's 3 or 4 years old or anything like that, but I definitely won't be one of those parents that are just like, oh, you can't watch R-rated movies until you're a teenager or whatever like that. I'm not going to be that person because I think it definitely shaped the person I am today. Maybe some could argue for the worse, but that's one thing that I really kind of looking back appreciate about my parents.
Yeah, my dad was the opposite. I don't think my mom didn't really care too much, but my dad was like, you can't watch that. And
yeah, it is what it is. I
remember at a sleepover in 5th grade, we watched Scream. Yeah. And I was so afraid my dad was going to find out and was going to beat my ass. So but he didn't find out. And he kind of chilled out with that kind of stuff as I got a little older, obviously. But yeah, I never understood that. So I'm sure with my kids, I'll show them things before they should probably see it. But as long as they're not on the playground saying fuck or something, we'll be good. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've thought about a lot recently, but because I'm getting to that 0age where I should probably start thinking about stuff like that. But yeah, my favorite Kevin Spacey film is probably, I guess, 7 might be the most obvious answer, but I'm going to pick the second most obvious answer, which is American Beauty. I think it's his most talked about role, obviously. I don't know if he won for that movie, or I know he was definitely nominated for his role as far as the Oscars are concerned for his role in American Beauty, because it is one of those movies. Not only is it phenomenal, but it's another one of those movies that it doesn't end the way you think it's going to end, and he's just phenomenal in it. He plays kind of a creep, but not really. The kid is definitely far more creepy than he is, but he just plays. He's
two different characters. It seemed like he's a kind of the submissive dad, like he's kind of given up on things, like he just kind of accepted his place, and then he kind of throws that away, and he's just like this really cool dad, doesn't give a shit about anything and just wants to be chilling out and just having a good time. And so I think he plays both of those types of characters really well in this movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I have not watched enough. I've only seen it a couple times.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Usual Suspects.
Yeah, I know. That's another one, too. Damn it. I forgot about that one, because that's a good one, too.
He's got a good filmography, man, and he's really good in Baby Driver, too. So you'll have to let me know what you think of it.
Usual Suspects, even though I do really like that movie quite a lot, it does take a little bit to get going. Like, it definitely is a slow burn, and I think from start to finish, I appreciate American Beauty a little bit more.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so that's episode 147 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. As always, you can subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use. You can also check out our website, thenerdspodcast.com, where I am writing a weekly blog series. You can also find our episode index as well as our Rotten Tomatoes film scorecard. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nerds You're Looking For. Check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central, which is currently on hiatus, but as soon as he's done training with his job, I'm sure he's going to get right back to it. And I'm also currently streaming South Park Stick of Truth every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. I'd like to eventually add a second day, maybe on the weekend, that I sit down and play as well. It's just the weekends are so crazy that once I say, I'm going to do something, I want it to be every week that I do it, and I want it to be maybe every Saturday at a certain time too. So not just every Saturday, and I'm going to let you know 10 minutes before I jump on. So I generally am trying to find a time to kind of nail it down. So I definitely want to add another day. I just don't know what it's going to be. All right. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. You can also email us, like I said earlier, the nerds you're looking for at gmail.com. Definitely include a couple of listener questions. That would be awesome. We're going to try to, again, do another one of those segments in an episode here coming up. You can also vote for us for Podcast a Month at podcastland.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.